What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Flying with Doug. It has been a long time since I've been on the microphone with you guys. And first and foremost, I want to say sorry. Sorry to Malachi Smith and his family. Um, I just would not feel comfortable coming back on here and doing this podcast, doing this show without apologizing because just over a year ago, Malachi Smith had played his last game for Dayton. And during that game, I tweeted out that Malachi Smith is a terrorist or something to that effect. And at the time, I thought not a lot of it. I just thought, all right, he's, not playing well, not helping the team, that kind of thing. And I just used a very poor choice of words. And I offended people. I upset people. I upset Malachi Smith. I upset his family to the extent that, you know, his brother reached out, his father reached out, everybody in between. And I just want to tell those people, I am sorry. There's a lot of things that were said about me that were not true in that situation, but I should not have gotten to the point where I was so invested in the game that I'm saying things that are hateful, hurtful, that a brother, a father, anybody like that has to read that their son is a terrorist. So I took that way too far, and I regret that decision because it kind of pushed me into a direction of not doing the show, not talking Flyers hoops as much, and not really, doing what I enjoy most. So I do want to apologize directly to Malachi Smith, to his family. I am so sorry for saying that, and I regret saying it. And I want you guys to know that if you ever hear this, it did bother me, and I'm sorry. So I just wanted to get that out of the way and let everybody know that I made a mistake and I own up to it. It is a year later, but this is the platform to finally apologize and let everybody know that I was wrong. So getting that out of the way, let's talk about the portal. The portal is what kind of reinvigorated me and made me excited again about Flyers hoops. This era of basketball is it's kind of hard to keep up with. I've had a lot of fun doing it, but it's definitely a difficult roller coaster. We've got the NIL, we've got players transferring every day. We've got just so much going on throughout the off season now that it's almost a full-time job just trying to keep everything straight. Who's coming, who's going, and Dayton, this transfer portal. I want to give the staff kudos. I mean, just absolutely crushing the transfer portal. 6 commitments. Just a week ago, I saw people, like Durs, all these guys that are, big accounts on the Dayton scene, myself. Where are all the commitments? Where is everybody? Who's going to play for Dayton next year? And then this past week, Anthony Grant and company just knocking it out of the park. 6 commitments this week. Travis Perry from Ole Miss, Jalen Haynes, from UC or George Mason, however you want to view that. Tristan Ford, Murray State, Zayd Lowry, Marquette, Grant Randall, Quinnipiac, and then last but not least, Dunk Joseph coming over from Marshall. 6 players on top of the 3 recruits signed by AG from high school. Aiden Durkak, 4-star. Cody Peck, 4-star. Julian Washington, 3-star. If you put all those players together, Dayton has ended this offseason, and you never know. They could add another player. They have another scholarship open. They could add one more player. But to end this offseason, going into training camp, getting into the summer, all that stuff, the 20th best recruiting class in the country based off the transfer portal and high school recruiting. Just an incredible job. And that's one thing that Anthony Grant's always going to do well. He's always going to recruit well. He's always going to do a good job of bringing in talented players. The question's always just going to be, can Anthony Grant do enough inside the basketball game to win and win at a high level? And that's going to be a fair concern for everybody, except for a handful of people who still beat that drum. But Anthony Grant and the staff have set themselves up with this transfer portal class and recruiting class to have depth at the front court positions, at wing, and then here recently they have gone out and got extra guard help. Not a lot I can complain about besides the fact that there's nobody on the team that I can say for a certain is a knockdown shooter at this point. Latong cannot be our best 3-point shooter. You can debate that, but he's the only guy who has done it at a high level, and I think he ended up shooting 36% last year. I'm going to go into all the commitments from the transfer portal, and we'll talk about their numbers and things like that. But Emil Latong cannot be our best 3-point shooter going into the season. So that is a massive concern right now. But let's get into the positives and let's talk about the players in the transfer portal. First and foremost, Travis Perry, who started his career at UK, transferred to Ole Miss. He started off Mr. Basketball in Kentucky, a really, really talented player, really sought after guy, and goes to Kentucky, and it just never really worked out for him at Kentucky. I think he was just under about 10 minutes a game, never really got his footing there, and then he transfers to Ole Miss. He's playing more, but at the same time, still not the consistency, not the level that you would want out of a guy. Kind of a combo guard, a small combo guard, but more of a combo guard than anything. Ended up, playing better as the year went along. I do want to give him credit for that because, the last 12 games, Perry shot 17 of 42 from 3-point line for 40%. Overall for the year, he ended up at 32% on just over 3 attempts a game. But that last 12-game stretch, I felt like he finally was coming on. He was getting a little bit more consistent with his minutes, and you could see his game starting to get a little bit more comfortable. I don't know. Dayton has a lot of competition, as this portal's gone along, as, McKee is going to get healthy this year and be competing for minutes. Julian Washington coming in is going to compete for minutes. Dunk Joseph is going to compete for minutes at guard. There's a lot of competition there. Lowry is going to compete for minutes at shooting guard. I mean, this is going to be a battle to get minutes here. So Travis Perry, the knock on him, in my opinion, would be the consistency, the lack of production. He had a hard time getting on the floor and staying on the floor at UK. He did average 16 minutes per game at Ole Miss, but didn't struggle or didn't score efficiently in those minutes. He was 34% from the field. Like I said, ended up being 35% from three or so. And he's a small guard. He's got to defend. The A10 is a very physical league. At 6'1", it's gonna be a challenge. So I'm very interested to see what Travis Perry can do at this level going forward. And then I do want to highlight his best game of the year last year was against NC State, where he scored 21 points. He was 5 of 5 from 3 and had 4 steals. So the potential and the ability is there. I think Dayton is definitely, knocking on the fact that he does have the ability to shoot. Dayton needs him to be a knockdown shooter this year. If he could get somewhere around 38 to 40% on, 7 attempts a game, I think that's a win. And I don't think they're going to ask him to be a primary ball handler, but I think he has the ability to do that. And I think he's more comfortable with that. And that's where he became such a well-known prospect coming out of Kentucky. So Travis Perry, a lot of promise there, but still some question marks. Next was Jalen Haynes, former All A10 player, rejoins the conference after missing last season playing at UC. Had an injury that kept him out, and those things happen. What I like most about Haynes' game is he is physically imposing. For a fact you are in for a battle when you are matching up with Haynes. I'm very excited to have this guy. I'm very excited for a multitude of reasons. I would almost say this is like a Nate Green type player with a little bit more size and a little bit more offensive ability. Last full season, he averaged 14 points per game on 55% shooting. along with 7 rebounds a game. He's got good feet. He knows how to use his body. He knows how to use his shoulders. He's got a good inside basketball game. Anywhere from about 15 feet in, I expect him to finish with authority. My issue with the Haynes pickup is more so about team and roster construction. Emil Latong still does a decent amount of work, regardless of him wanting to be out on the perimeter more. He still does a decent amount of work in the paint with, rolling off the pick and roll, catching, finishing around the basket. I'm wondering how those two are going to work together. I know obviously Latong is going to be on the wing or on the wings at the top, setting screens and things like that. But how does AG and the staff space them out? How do we get space? Who's going to be our 3-point shooters that can help give Haynes room to work inside? As talented as he is, as physically imposing as he is, if he's got no space to operate inside, it's going to be very difficult for his game to flourish in today's game. So that's a massive concern. And the other concern for me is he going to be healthy? Is he 100% coming into the year? Can he regain that A10 all A10 form? It's a question to be asked, but I think his throwback style and his physicality are going to be a very welcome sight come November. I cannot wait to see him drop a shoulder on somebody and score through a defender because, Dayton hasn't had a lot of physically dominant players in the post. We've had some very talented guys, Deron Holmes, Obi Toppin, but I wouldn't say they were put a shoulder in your chest, knock you back 2 feet, and then finish above you. I mean, they could obviously finish above you with athleticism, but I'm talking about just, not Shaq, but like a baby Shaq type physicality. I'm very excited to get him on and get him up to speed. His best game at George Mason, his last full season, he scored 20.7 times that year, and he had 5 double doubles. I mean, the potential and the ability for this guy is there. We just got to get him healthy and figure out how we can give him some space to operate. Really excited. I'm very excited for what Jalen Haynes can bring. Also, and I didn't even mention, the guy's got experience. He played those games at George Mason. Had another stop in before that. And then, UC, we may hate UC and all that, but, getting a scholarship to play basketball at UC is an accomplishment flat out. So very excited to see him play. Next on the list, and this is the guy that we have the most questions about, in my opinion, and that's Tristan Ford. Didn't play at Murray State last year. And that, to me, right off the bat, kind of gives me a little pause. He was redshirted by the coach. Murray State, in my opinion, is a good basketball program, but Dayton is a better program and a little bit of a higher profile program. So if you are redshirted at Murray State, what does that mean going forward for you? Now, don't get me wrong. If you watch this guy's highlights, he is a lefty. He has a beautiful jump shot. It is pure. I don't know what he shoots percentage-wise because he obviously didn't play. And in high school, he was incredible. Most guys are at that, who are going to go on to play D1 basketball. I keep looking at the pictures of his step back or the highlights of his step back jumper, and it's just, it's beautiful. But again, all we can go off of is our highlights. And yeah, we can rah and believe that those are, in-game reps, but they're not. And playing at the D1 level is just much different. Positives for Tristan Ford. He's got 4 more years of eligibility. So I do appreciate the coach for redshirting him there. That means AG and staff, in this era, we can't, nothing's for certain, but that gives them a runway with him to develop him and maybe, build him into our next star point guard. So to me, it's going to be interesting to watch Tristan Ford and see what he can do, see if he can crack the rotation, see if he can get game minutes after not being able to play last year at Murray State. Talent is there. It's just Is it good enough to play at this level? We will find out very quickly. Next on our list is Zayd Lowry. This guy is, I'm trying to think of a comp. Jimmy Butler's a really, really like the top level version of what Zayd Lowry can be. Jimmy Butler, being the two-way guy that he is, carried a team to the finals. Zayd Lowry has that kind of physicality, that kind of dog in him. The problem is, what is the level at which he is that dog? He had the incident at Marquette where he left the program after 11 games. That's alarming. I mean, anytime a player leaves a program abruptly after 11 games, there's a lot of questions, and there's, some comments being made on social media about him, but he's our guy. We're going to embrace him with open arms. I think he's got his athleticism alone is just unreal. I'm going to equate that to the Deshane Montgomery type build. He is a shooting guard. I cannot wait to see him in that run and jump trap that AG loves to use. I think he's going to get out in transition and use that athleticism and finish above the rim in a major way. Lowry is described as a lockdown defender, a guy who averaged over a steal a game in his 11-game stint at Marquette. And like I said, I feel like he's that Montgomery role next year, potentially that starting shooting guard. The only issue for me is consistency with his jump shot. That in those 11 games, he shot just below 30% from three on over 4 attempts a game. To me, Dayton they need their shooting guard to be a 3-point threat. At times last year, Montgomery was a 3-point threat, but it was not a consistent threat. And with spacing being at a premium because of Latong and Haynes and some of the other front court players, Lowry's going to have to hit some shots. I think he's got to hit around 34, 35% on those 4 to 5 attempts a game. And another thing that I need Lowry to do at a better clip is, as much as he likes to attack the rim, play above the rim, he was only shooting 1 free throw a game over those 11 games. So to me, there is a ton of upside for Lowry and for Dayton, but he's got to figure out how he fits into his role and improve on the things that we saw him do well at Marquette and take it to the next level. His best game was a game against Maryland where he scored 14 points, had 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. To me, that shows that's that Jimmy Butler build. He can score, he can rebound, he does a little bit of passing, defense. If we can get all of that in one package consistently throughout the year, I mean, that's a really good player and a lot of potential here with Zayd Lowry. So while, there are some question marks, there's a lot to be excited about this guy. I cannot wait to see him at UD Arena get out in transition and dunk on somebody, because that's the kind of player he is. Again, Jimmy Butler light, a little bit more athletic, a little less jump shot than Jimmy Butler, but a Jimmy Butler type dog. Next on our list, Grant Randall. This guy is the prototype for Anthony Grant. This is the guy Anthony Grant looks for when he's recruiting. 6'9", athletic, can run the floor. He's got some skills, but they're still very raw. This is the perfect signing for Dayton, in my opinion. I'm very excited about the upside of Grant Randall. At Quinnipiac, he averaged 11 points a game, 6.5 rebounds. And that was as a sophomore. Very efficient player. He does not turn the ball over. I think the stat was he had 0.7 turnovers per 40 minutes. That's incredible. That's something that you don't hear. So to me, just it's when you watch the highlights and you watch him play, you see flashes of brilliance. He had 26 dunks last season. He's a willing shooter, which, at 6'9", I think that's great. He had a massive improvement from his freshman year, where he shot 15% from three to 32% last year on almost 4 attempts. So definitely a willing shooter, a kid who's working on his jump shot. You can tell because he keeps getting better incrementally. If he can make another jump to Again, that's these numbers. It's 35, 36% at 4 or 5 attempts a game. Things I'm looking out for Randall is his build. He is a slight build. I think he's listed at 195 pounds, 6'9". The A10 is a physical league. Don't get me wrong. When teams come out of conference and play the A10, they're kind of affected by the physicality. So I think it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment to Randall. I think the staff has to have a plan in place to get him, over 200 pounds. If they can get him to 205, that's a massive win. And have him ready to go by November. If he's 6'9", 205 by game one, I think that's a massive win. It will be interesting to me to see how the front court and wings play out. I think Randall has a chance to play a lot of wing this year in almost that Keontae Jones type role, where he's out helping with the press, tipping passes, stealing passes, guarding the other team's best wing. I just think that there's some potential here for him to be a little bit better offensively. I think he finishes a little bit better around the basket and has a better 3-point shot at this point. To me, Keontae Jones was a monster, but I think this kid has a chance to be even a little bit better with AG's development and this staff getting their hands on him. His best game last year was against Marist, the final game of their season. He had 28 points, 15 rebounds, 2 blocks, a steal. He was 5 of 5 from 3 and 9 of 11 from the free throw line. For a guy who's 6'9", I think he shoots 74% from the free throw line. That shows me he does have the ability and the skills to be a decent shooter at his size. So that's a guy that I definitely want to look out for, and I'm really excited to have on the team. Last but not least, and I'm just going to let everybody know up front, I'm not going to call him Landon Joseph. I'm going to call him Dunk Joseph because that is one of the best nicknames in college basketball. This guy, to me, comes in and solidifies the point guard spot. There were a lot of questions. Is Travis Perry going to be the starter? Can McKee make a run for the spot? Who's going to be the starting point guard for this team next year? In my opinion, Dunk Joseph is more than likely going to win the job. Again, just an opinion, but I think he's got the skill set to lead a team, especially coming into his sophomore year. Had an up and down year at Marshall, really came on at the end of the year. I think his last they played Miami on 2-7. After that, he had 7 games over 10 points and multiple games with 6 assists. I think he can lead a team. I think he can defend at a high level. He's had multiple games with over 3 steals. It's a very talented player. And on top of that, he shoots the ball well. He shoots 41% from 3 on 3 attempts a game. That's going to probably go up a little bit in terms of attempts, and maybe the percentage goes down a little bit. But you give a little bit to take a little bit, and he did this in 18 minutes a game and started 6 games last year. There's a ceiling there that is very high for a very talented player. Averaged 8 points last year, a steal, 2.5 assists, 2.5 rebounds. He's a willing rebounder at his size. He rounds out what I believe as the last of the transfer portal commits. To me, guys, Dayton sets themselves up very well going into the next year. Like I've said, for multiple reasons, the great recruiting class, the great transfer portal class. Now, how do we bring all these pieces together to fit with Simon, with Latong, with Fryery, with McKee, with all these other guys? There's a lot of competition on this. Malcolm Thomas, there's going to be a ton of competition on this roster. And to me, that's only going to make Dayton better. You're going to get everybody's best. I understand there's NIL money involved, all this stuff. I would say the only for certain starter is Emil Latong. To me, he's the only guaranteed starter next year. That means you have 4 spots up for freshmen to come in and get those spots. 4-star Aiden Durkak, Cody Peck, Julian Washington. Those guys are all fighting for time. Returning guys like McKee, Fryery, Thomas. There are spots available. Who's going to come take them? So that's what it's going to get into lineup projections. For me, As it sits today, I'm going to go Dunk Joseph. I'm going to go uh, Lowry at the shooting guard position. I think he fits that role very well. I'm going to put Randall at the 3. I'm going to put Jalen Haynes / Emil Latong at the 4. And then I'm going to put Jalen Hayes or Emil Latong at the 5. And then that's where it gets interesting. That's a big lineup. That's 6'9" at the small forward spot. That's 6'9" at the power forward or center spot, and that's 7'1" at the center or power forward spot. Lowry is a 6'5", well put together, and Dunk Joseph is 6'2", 6'3". That's a big lineup. Dayton has not had a lineup that big in quite some time, so that's definitely something to look forward to. And then you would have Simon. You would have Durkak, you'd have Peck, you'd have Malcolm Thomas, you'd have McKee, Washington, you'd have all these guys off the bench, Friary, who hopefully can come in and knock down shots at a high clip this year. You got a lot of guys and a lot of depth this season. I think it's, what are we, March? Season doesn't start till November. Got a lot of time in between. A lot's going to change from now until then. But I think Dayton's really positioned themselves well to have a team that could make a tournament. More than likely, they won't, just based on the history. And I hate to say that, and I hate to throw that kind of negativity in there. But it's just can Anthony Grant and company put the pieces together, get everybody in the correct spots, find enough shooting to space the floor, and if they do, the talent's there. Their talent's never been an issue for Dayton. And that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about these young athletic guys who have come in to mesh with Latong, with Simon, with Friary, with McKee, with all these guys that, have been here for a couple of years who are ready to take the next step. I'm excited, guys. I feel like I've seen a lot of excitement on social media. I'm glad to be back talking to you guys, doing a podcast. I'm not sure when the next one will be. Hopefully the next time we get some news. And with this portal, guys, you never know. We could get another commitment tomorrow that could change all of this. So to recap, Malachi Smith, I am sorry from the bottom of my heart for calling you that and saying that to you, and having your family have to read something like that. I am very sorry. 6 portal signings, full player breakdowns. Obviously, we're going to learn a lot more about these guys. This is just a very surface level. And then lineup projections. Who knows who's going to actually start? Competition is going to just make these guys better and better and better. Very excited, guys. It is only what? April 21st. We got a lot of time left. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for interacting with me on X. I will see you guys next time. This has been Flying with Doug. Later.